Okay, Boston, Massachusetts, 2003. It was my absolute final opportunity to step on the national track of my entire life. The top 20 800-meter runners were going to step on that stage at preliminaries, and I was so prepared. I trained my butt off, and I knew the weight of this moment was so huge for me. I knew that the rest of my life, I was going to remember this race forever. It was going to have a huge placeholder in all of my future memories, and I'll never forget it. I remember getting there. I was walking down the track towards the start line. I looked to the right. I looked to the left. I saw everybody in the stands. My heart was racing. My palms were sweaty. And I took to that start line. I looked at the starter. All the athletes are there. This was preliminaries. I just had to get through preliminaries and then finals, and I was going to be a national champion. On your marks, get set, pow, boom, and I took off. At 5 feet tall, my only strategy was to go as fast as I can and get out there and not get boxed in, because if you haven't noticed, I'm quite a lot shorter than my competition, but it did not stop me. Bam, I take off, take the lead. I was in great position, okay? Great position. Come around the first turn, bam. I'm feeling so good. This is my race. I'm coming around. Okay, I am making my way around, and I'm in such a good position. I start to pace myself because I know I just have to get through this one, and then I'm on finals. All the way to the finish line. I'm in my final kick, all the way to the finish line. Bam! I am golden. I know I'm golden. I got this. Hands on my knees, deep breath in. I just have to look for the results. So I look up, and I didn't think I won. I knew I was somewhere in the front. So I look up, and I see the first name, and it wasn't me. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. The second name, okay, all right. I see the third name. I'm starting to go into shock. My heart sinks, and I see the names, and all of a sudden, Wendy Fortino, DQ. What? What the heck just happened? Oh my gosh. This is like the most crazy moment. I could not believe what was happening. What the heck just happened? First of all, how in the world did I get disqualified? So apparently, when I took out into the front, I cut into the cone 2 inches early, 2 inches. And that was it. That was it for me. So I had to stay in Boston thinking about this. And I ran the scenario over and over again in my head. I was just thinking about it. I'm like, what could I have done different? I could have, and that whole time that I was thinking about it, I was thinking about something that I hear people say all the time, don't get your hopes up. What if you don't get what you want? What if it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to? And for me, nothing could have been worse than that. I mean, can you imagine your last NC2A indoor national championships, and it's just done just like that? Here's the thing. I started to dive into my very first lesson that I was ever going to learn, that I was going to take with me for the rest of my life. First of all, I couldn't protect myself from the feeling, so I sat with it, and it hurt so bad, and I realized everybody wonders, don't get your hopes up. And I realized this was my very first lesson that I took with me for the rest of my life, which is I absolutely, positively deserved to get my hopes up because I prepared. And when I got my hopes up and I did the result that was probably the worst case scenario that could ever happen, I was okay, right? And moving forward, when I get my hopes up again, what could be worse than that, right? I mean, literally nothing can be worse than that. So that was my first lesson that I was going to take with me for the rest of my life. I wanted to feel it. When you feel, and I heard the panel before us, I think Kim Lyons touched on it. She said, when you feel it, you want to come back, and you want to come back harder, because that feeling is something that so many people want to protect themselves from, but it quite literally is the thing that makes you want it even more. So I'm in 2003. 2004 is right around the corner, and what happens in 2004? The Olympics, right? And I, of course, had Olympic dreams. Coming out of my senior year in college, got signed on to run professionally for a team called A6 Aggies. I was sponsored by ASICS, and I was kind of by myself training, and I really wanted to be able to travel out to San Luis Obispo to train with where my team was stationed. So I actually applied for the #1 exercise physiology master's program in the world, and in the country, I'm sorry, which was Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I applied, I got in, and so I was set up. I was going to head out to San Luis Obispo, train with my team, train. But before that, I had to prepare myself for the Olympic trials in 2004, and I needed to hit a time. I didn't have a car, so I was living home with my parents, getting ready to head out to grad school. I didn't have a car, and so I decided there was one more opportunity for me to hit a time and try to secure a spot in the Olympic trials. And I decided to go to the last chance Olympic trial distance qualifier meet in LA. I was in Modesto, and I looked it up, and I found out that there was a 3 a.m. train ticket to LA, and I decided, and I calculated it out, if I took this train from 3 a.m., I was going to get to the track in time to do a 1-hour warm-up and run my race. That sounds crazy, right? I mean, what athlete in their right mind thinks that you could do that and be at your peak condition? Well, I had a lot of delusion, and I think that anyone who accomplishes anything has to have a certain level of crazy delusion in them, which I did. And honestly, I was so focused, and I'm like, this is my last chance. So I got on that train, I took it all the way to LA, got to LA, I got to the track. I am not in the best. Obviously, I probably could have slept more. I probably could have eaten better. I probably could have been in a better physical place than I was, but I didn't care. I was just so focused. I remember I got to the track. I stepped on the line. Bam, I took off, and I raced my heart out. And I didn't make my time. Didn't get my time. But you want to know what's so crazy about that? Is that I was so dang proud of myself. It was crazy. You know what? It was almost like I felt like I won, because when I got there and I raced, and even though I didn't get the time that I wanted, I learned lesson #2 that I was going to take with me for the rest of my life. First of all, I got my hopes up. So I went into this challenge, and my hopes were up, right? Lesson #2 is that it wasn't even about the fact that I didn't get my time. It was like all of a sudden I was a completely different person. I was the person who was going to do whatever it took to get what I wanted. And I literally did. I mean, can you imagine what kind of crazy person would do that? Honestly, I don't even remember how I got home. I know I did. But, at the time, I was just, I was so proud of myself. Because moving forward, I was going to take that lesson with me, and I was going to go on, and I was going to do whatever it took to get what I wanted, right? I knew that I could handle whatever happened. I knew I had the grit to do it, and I knew that, I was going to be willing to do it. So, hang on. You already know what happens next. I am now in San Luis Obispo, and I'm training with my track team, and I finished my master's degree 2006, and I'm training and I'm racing and I'm doing really, really, really well. And then from 2006 to 2008, because the Olympics happens every 4 years, I have a series of awesome jobs. I'm fitness director at YMCA, and I'm doing different things. In 2008, I land an awesome job. I'm the fitness director at Stanford University, and I'm overseeing all the fitness facilities at the university, and I'm working with the athletic coaches. I'm doing research out of the exercise physiology lab, and I am just loving life. I'm doing it all, right? I'm training, and 2008 is coming around the corner. My career is going well. I mean, everything is just really taking off. And also, at the time, it was the Jim Harbaugh and Andrew Luck era in the football program, and I became a strength and conditioning coach for the football team also. So I was working with them, and I was doing, I was overseeing all the fitness facilities. And in 2008, I am now in the peak condition training for the Olympic trials, and I'm feeling really good. My times are great, and you already know what happens. About a month and a half before the Olympic trials, I am having so much pain in my foot, and I go in and I find out that I have a stress fracture in my foot. Oh my gosh. I can still feel this. I felt all these things so much that I still feel them when I say them out loud. And I'm like, what in the heck am I going to do? Right? This is my life. What am I going to wait another 4 years, to try to, go to the Olympics in 4 years? I mean, in track, gymnastics, these sports, you're long in the tooth when you're like in your early 20s. You're already kind of aging out of, being able to be at your peak physical condition when you're doing these sports. So at the time, I started dating this guy that was a bodybuilder, and I didn't really know much about the bodybuilding world, but he was doing this thing with Tupperwares and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I was eating spaghetti and meatballs and all that kind of stuff. Runners, we don't really even have a diet. We just eat spaghetti. And so when I found out I have a stress fracture, he and all of his friends basically said, look, she looks like she could step on stage, like throw her in a show. So even with a stress fracture, it gave me something to get my mind off of things. In 2008, I did my first competition. I did the NPC San Francisco Championships in 2008, and I won the overall. I was like, oh, thank you. Miss San Francisco 2008, thank you. And that was, at the time, I didn't really think this was going to be my thing, but I thought, okay, that's kind of a cool distraction, right? But then my foot healed, and I was convinced that when my foot healed, I was going to go back to the track. Once my foot healed, here I was at Stanford. I had access to all the coaches, and I ended up becoming really good friends with the assistant gymnastics coach at Stanford University, who told me he would train me for a fitness competition. So I was in the gym training with the Stanford gymnastics team 4 times a week, getting some of my gymnastics skills back, and so I went and I did the NPC Sacramento Championships. I did both fitness and figure, and I won the overall in both. So I was, like, you know what, this is a little different. I'm like, no, okay, I haven't really hit a hiccup yet. Things seem like, okay. I'm like, is this how it goes? You know what I mean? This is my pivot. I realized this is my next phase in life. I think, like, I've heard some of the panelists talk about this, but you're fighting your destiny so much, you're fighting what you're supposed to be doing so much, and it's all right in front of you. I mean, at 5 feet tall, maybe I was never meant to be a track athlete. Maybe I just was all heart, all grit, and track was just never supposed to be in the cards for me. I think that's probably what it was. I mean, if you saw me on the track next to everyone I was competing at the level I was at, you'd probably agree. Wendy, I think you got to take your heart to another place. So yeah, here I am. I'm invested in this bodybuilding journey now, right? But I still hadn't had a loss yet, right? And I started competing in national competitions. And for those of you who don't know, it took me 5 times to finally get my pro card. And in 2011, that's what this photo is. In 2011, it's a little warped because AI did something to it. I don't have that long of a torso. But in 2011, I ended up winning the overall at the NPC USA Championships. So I remember going into that show all the way leading up to every national show. I kept saying, I want to say I'm Miss USA. I want to say that I'm Miss USA. And I think that I manifested it because I became Miss USA, right? And I realized when I was competing in my journey, like, so much of who I was and who I built and who I had created within myself was based off of all of the falls and all the failures and all the stuff that I had to get through to lead me into this moment. And an observation that I made is, people really like the underdog, because when I became pro, I got second a lot. She knows. She was my judge. I think maybe I've been second place probably 20 times. I don't know. But it's kind of interesting because in a weird way, I went into every competition expecting to win, getting my hopes up, wanting that obviously that victory. And when it didn't happen, it was like people were wanting me to win so bad. And it's funny, and I think people can really relate to that experience of you fall down and you get back up. And so I would genuinely encourage everybody to share their story. When you fall and you feel like you're alone, share that with everybody, because that's what people root for, And when you win, they don't. No, I'm kidding. No, they do. It's so cool because when you do win, it feels so good because you know what it feels like to not, And another interesting observation that I've made is, there are people who, they don't win, and then they feel like it's the end of the world, and they get so devastated and so brokenhearted that they don't want to come back and do it again. And I honestly feel like if you are strong enough to handle it, you're going to get back up and you're going to do it again, right? If you're somebody who has never tried, you've never gone for anything, you've never felt like a really, really kick in your gut loss, you're going to be a lot more likely to run away and not come back for more because you haven't built that resilience. It takes those falls and those heartbreaking moments to build that kind of resilience it takes to want to come back and do it again. So my mentality, taking my first lesson of getting my hopes up, going through, doing whatever it takes. And then I remember from 2011 to 2014, I was kind of competing and I was, doing well and everything, but it was in 2014 that I was like, I am going to qualify for the Olympia. This is my year to qualify for the Olympia. And I competed in, I think, like 7 shows that year, right? And at that time, there was a point system, so I was actually qualified for my first Olympia on points. And I remember it was, I think, my 7th show that season, and my body was really worn out, and Sandy was judging. And I needed like 1 point. I was like, oh my gosh, I just need 1 point. I just need to get like 5th place, and I'm gonna qualify. And I think I ended up getting 2nd place. I was really, really close to winning, and it was the Tahoe Championships, and it was that moment where I qualified. I knew I was in, and it was like it had been three whole years since I had gotten my pro card to finally winning and getting my first Olympia qualification. My gosh, that feeling was unreal, right? It was unreal because I had felt so much defeat, so much failure, so much loss. I'd come through so many different twists and turns, and then there I was. So this is the champion's mindset. And if any of you have ever really gone for something that you really, really want, you know that it's inevitable that you're most of the time not going to get exactly what you want, right? But you know that when you do get exactly what you want, it is the best feeling in the whole world. You get addicted to that ebbs and flows. You get addicted to the fact that you are fall, and then there's this crazy fire that comes in you, and then that fire fuels you, and it makes you want to go into your next moment, right? So here are the results are in. After I'm in, oh my gosh, 16 years in, okay, and I can say proudly that I have been the overall USA champion. I have competed on that Olympia stage 8 times, and I haven't even covered my business side of things, which is, when I had created this person, this beast in me, who knew that nothing could be worse than what happened to me at the 2003 Indoor National Championship. In 2013, I think, I cold turkey quit my job at Stanford, which was probably the most dream job you could possibly have in my field. And I completely put trust in my business that I started with my husband, Cyber Body Shop. At the time, online coaching wasn't really a thing, and I launched a series of products, and I did coaching, and I just believed in myself, and I knew that no matter what happened, nothing could be worse than that. And that's what kind of carried me through, right? Same thing when I decided I wanted to start doing media. In about, I think it was like 2018, I just woke up one day and I'm like, I want to get into media. And I started getting on podcasts, and I co-hosted the Monica Brandt Show, and I did a series of events, and I got out there. A couple years ago, I started doing media for Wolfpack, an amazing brand, right? I have done multiple things. I started doing media for Olympia TV, Muscle and Fitness, a series of different brands. And this is because I truly believe in myself. I know what it feels like to get exactly the opposite of what you want. And I also know that it is absolutely, positively never going to stop me from going for it again. And that was my crossover. Who you are, and I think Andre said this, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And you quite literally are a completely different person when you go through these ebbs and flows of life. When you get your hopes up and you don't get exactly what you want, you become this resilient, crazy, delusional person. And then that delusional person goes and does whatever it takes. And then this delusional person is a completely changed person. This person that you have built, you are quite literally a changed person. You're a new person right now in this moment than you were 5 years ago. I know that I am, right? So resilience, that's a word that we toss around, right? But it's built by expecting more, letting it hurt. And I'm gonna touch on that one more time. And you're gonna hear me, this is a theme that I say this all the time to people when it comes to getting your hopes up. I think that I've heard so many people go into a competition or a challenge and they're like, I don't expect much. I don't need a win. I don't expect much. Because why? Because what if I don't get exactly what I wanted? What if it hurts? Yeah, it's probably going to. It's probably going to hurt a lot if you wanted it really bad. If you go into a competition and you want to win so bad and you don't, it's going to hurt really bad. But I don't want to protect myself from that. I want it to hurt. I want that feeling. I want to sit with it. I want to own it. And I want to take it, because every single time I go into that gym or I'm on my computer thinking of a new idea, I want to be thinking about the fact that that hurt and I don't want that to happen again. And it fuels me. And I'm like, yes, like this is, I need to feel it. I need to feel. And when I win, I want to feel that too, right? I want to feel how good it feels to get exactly what I wanted. And because I allowed myself to feel when I didn't get what I wanted, it feels that much better when I get exactly what I wanted. And so the myth that failure is the opposite of success, it absolutely is not. And I think that goes without saying, right? Failure can't stop me. Success, I say, cannot make me complacent, but it has. And I think that anybody who gets to a certain level, I think any champion can relate to this. You get to a certain place in your career, you get to a certain place in your life, and maybe you get everything that you originally wanted to get, right? You decided that you wanted to get your pro card. You decided that you wanted to get to the Olympia stage. You decided that you wanted to start a business. You decided that you wanted to, you're right where you thought you wanted to be, right? And you're like, I'm good. This is what I wanted. And that happened to me so many times along the way in my journey. When I got my pro card, I thought, I'm Miss USA. Like, that's it. I'm good, right? And then it took me 3 years to get myself back going again and say that's not enough for me, right? That's what happens. You absolutely go through these moments. It's not a linear path. It goes like this, right? But the thing is no matter how many times you go down, because you've been up here, that's who you are. And you know that that's who you are. You've built that person, you've created that person, and that's where you are going to take yourself. So I want to leave you all with my 3 big lessons that I took with me, and I want you all to take these with you. And I think if you take these lessons with you, I believe that you can't fail. I believe that you are going to succeed beyond your wildest dreams. Number 1 is to absolutely, positively get your hopes up. Because why not? You're going to maybe not get exactly what you wanted, but go for it. In your mind, think, I'm going to win, and I'll deal with whatever happens. Number 2 is do whatever it takes to get your goal. If you want it, you're going after it. And number 3 is you are absolutely, unequivocally a completely different person right now. After you've built this person that you are, than you were. I'm a different person now than I was in 2003 when I took that track, getting ready to start my last indoor 800 national championships. So those are my final thoughts, and I just want to wish you all so much luck. Chase after what you want, get your hopes up, and I wish you all the most success. And thank you so much.